So I think this most important thing in developing a media ecosystem is to think about people. You've got to think about the people that you're trying to influence. Think about and really diagnose how do they engage with that category, and what are the touch points that you can then wrap around them to form that ecosystem that will then give you really great ways to have conversation with them. So that's just sort of setting up the ecosystem in the right way for that particular customer, for that particular category. I think what's really important though is that an ecosystem is like an iceberg. So you've got the visible part, you've got the media that you're going to put in front of them and the creative you're going to put in those channels. But underneath that, there has to be an ecosystem of data that no one's really going to see, but it's going to influence every part of that ecosystem. It's going to allow you to understand the intent of that individual and ensure that you can then turn that intent into action so that you're moving them along that ecosystem. Also important is to measure how that each of those points of communication is impacting and actually moving them along that ecosystem, so that at the end you can measure the business value. And I think again, from a business value perspective, it's really important that you're looking at how the ecosystem interconnects with itself, not just the sort of final point. So attribution and some modeling work and analytics that allows you to really unpick how's that ecosystem making that behavior change. And as I was saying earlier in my talk, how is that also making that customer or that potential customer feel? So trying to get some sorts of emotional KPIs out of that as well, so you can understand how you're actually making them feel about it rather than just what they do. So I think one of the most disruptive technologies in the next maybe 2, 3, 4 years is probably going to be voice. Now that's a very big area, and it's less about a sort of individual technology that's going to do something interesting. It's more about changing how we actually access the entire digital ecosystem. So right now it's largely a screen-based interaction. I think what that's going to move to is a voice-activated, but probably still screen receiving interface. So you will ask questions, but you may not always get audio answers back. You might get video back, you might get still images, you might get text, you might get pictures or whatever that might be. And I think you need to think about that in terms of the types of experiences that you're creating for your consumers, for your customers, for your prospects, in terms of it's going to be quite different to how it is today, and that may also change location. So different rooms in a house, we're very used to big screens in living rooms, we're very used to radio in the car, but the car is going to be an interactive environment that's voice activated. So I think that for me is like an overarching technological change that will impact on many different touch points. So I think as the digital economy continues to change and continues to throw up new challenges, I think there is huge opportunity, but also clearly huge threat, as with any changing ecosystem, for agencies. And I think those challenges are quite broad. Right now in the marketplace, we have challenges around trust in agencies, trust in agency practices. That's a big challenge. We have competitive threats coming from areas that we've never really experienced before. That's again a big challenge. And then we have our own revenue models, which are declining as clients and cost is pushing really hard on that. So we have to think about new ways of us getting paid for the work that we do and paid for the value that we add to clients and to clients' businesses. So I think we need to think really carefully about what's our culture, what's our structure, what's our almost like our own remuneration elements and incentives for our own employees, and really start to create environments where you can get genuine collision of different channels, different capabilities. And I think where Dentsu has an advantage is that we've lived in the operating model and the single P&L for a long time. I think what we now need to do is to use technology, to use data, and to use cultural change to make that more like systemic in the organization, so that we don't come in and say, hey, I'm from my prospect, or hey, I'm from Cara. It's just, hey, I'm really interested in this. How can we work together to create some amazing stuff? And I think that shift still needs to happen. So I think the digital camp is an opportunity to kind of step back. I mean, Tia said, I thought really interestingly in her first talk, was this idea of when you're constantly on the go, creativity is very hard to channel and very hard to derive. So for me, digital camp is an opportunity to sit back, be somewhat reflective, think about some things you don't think about every day, take those on board, and then go away and start to apply some of that stuff. Or even just let it sit there in your head so that inspiration will come. And it could be a week later, it could be a month later, it could be a year later. I think it's really important that we take this time to step outside of the day-to-day and allow ourselves to kind of, as Tia said, fill the well. You got to start filling that with different thinking, different thoughts so that you can be different and better in the future.